What's going on, Facebook family? Pastor Batson here with a word to the world like in times like these. Um, my daughter has been, she's like most students, she's been home and doing her work online in the midst of COVID-19. It's been interesting because she's had no no instruction from a teacher per se. It's been and she's a senior, so she's on the downhill side. There's not a whole lot of some of the hands-on work that she would have had to do. She's not having to do that. But I asked her an interesting question. I said, "Well, babe, like how do you take a test? Um, you know." And at the time, she hadn't had to take a test, so she was like, "I don't know. I guess we just gonna ask questions online. We just gonna take the test, right?" So she had no idea what the test was going to look like. Well, I'm sure at this point in time she's had to take a couple of tests. But here's what's interesting: many of us are taking tests and don't realize it. In fact, we're failing tests, and some we're passing. But there are too many times that we're failing tests that we really just should be passing. And let me just be quite honest. In James chapter 1, it talks about being excited when you face certain tests and trials of many kinds. Listen, I never been a great test taker. I did do well in school, but I just wasn't a great test taker. Something about taking a test, when I just knew it was a test, I got a little nervous, I guess. I don't know. My stomach just didn't want to be settled. It took something out of me to take a test. But here's what James is saying. James is saying, listen, when you take tests, he says, if you take a test, you ought to take the test. He said, but you got to have the right attitude when you take the test. Tests do something. See, tests don't just measure what we don't know, all right? Because that's how it can look like. The teacher just wants to prove to us how much we don't know, but rather a test is an examination or a measurement of how far we've grown. And sometimes we have not grown as much as we needed to grow, but that's what a test does. A test is a proving ground to see just how much or how far you have come. And so when you think about how when you experience certain situations and certain circumstances, when they come your way, sometimes they come that way just to see how you're going to respond. Sometimes God will allow you to see or experience a thing just to see how far along are you. Have you grown? Are you growing? Are you in the same place? What's going on with you? Where are you in this process? But sometimes we pass those tests, and then sometimes we don't quite pass those tests. But it does matter how you take the test. And James says you had at least face the test. He says you had at least face it. What does that mean? He says face it for a couple of reasons. One, you need to know what you're up against. When we're talking about, when we're dealing with facing COVID and all that goes with it, we at least need to know what we're up against. We need to know the ramifications of going out too early, the ramifications of the sickness, and we need to know the statistics of of the disproportionate deaths. We have to be aware of all those things because we've got to take them into consideration when we decide to go out. And if we're coming back around children or around our elderly, around our senior saints, those who are highly susceptible to catching COVID and more than likely dying from it, we have to consider all of those things. We have to face it just so we know what we're up against. But then the second thing, when it comes to us personally, we got to face it because watch this, God can't fix it if we won't face it. Y'all, there are some things that we are going through. There's some stuff that we experience. And let me just tell you something. If we don't face it, God can't fix it. And now here's the truth be told, some stuff we don't want God to fix. Now listen, now I know I ain't meddling now, but I'm just saying there's some stuff that we go through that we comfortable and like, no, Lord, leave that alone right there. Because I like that part, right? We kind of hang a do not disturb sign on our hearts, like, Lord, leave that part of my heart alone. Let me compartmentalize this so that I can continue to do what I want to do and enjoy this area. We all do that. We all have areas that we are failing tests, and there's some areas that we're passing some tests. But let me just tell you this. If anybody ought to benefit from what you go through, if anybody ought to benefit from your test and what you go through, it ought to be you. And so whatever you do, grow through what you go through. That's what I'm trying to tell you in this season. As you're going through it, grow through it. As you go, make sure that you're learning something. Don't have gone through all of this nonsense, all of this foolishness, and then don't grow through what you go through. Listen, face it so God can fix it. And guess what? God wants to fix you. God wants to fix you, but he says you gotta face, you gotta be honest with yourself. You have to have some honest conversations. God, what is it about me that needs to be fixed? Is it my mindset? Is it my attitude? Is it the way I think? Do I think wrong about money? Do I think wrong about relationships? Have I become, because I was hurt, have I become so trashy in my thinking that now I don't think nobody's any good? Now I don't think I'm skepticistic and I'm pessimistic and skeptical about everything and everybody. I don't trust nothing. I don't trust anybody. Has it come to that? Have we been that hurt? Have we been that discouraged that we just view everything negative? If you don't at least face that fact, God can't fix that fact. But if you face it, God can fix it. It's not just about your altitude, how God takes you. It's about your attitude in the process. God says, face it with the right attitude. Listen, whatever we do in this season, family, let's grow through what we go through. Until next time, friends, I love y'all, and let's continue to grow through what we go through. I see y'all, everybody. I love y'all, each and every one. Hey, Carrie, Mel, Katina. Hey, that's my favorite auntie. I love you so much. Hey, Ash, Jenny, Andre, what's up, man? Shell, my sister. Hey, Tammy, how are you? Hey, Tamara. Hey, what's up, Broderick? Good to see y'all. I love you. Peace.